far in the ancient lands of the American Southwest, there were people who chose to live inside the cliffs, high, sheltered places carved gently into the stone. They were peaceful families guided by the quiet rhythm of nature and the steady comfort of their surroundings. Their world moved slowly, nothing rushed, nothing demanded attention. Life followed the rise and fall of warm days and the calm stillness of cool nights. Imagine approaching their home as if quarried by a soft breath of warm desert air. You walk along a narrow path, hearing only your own steps, a gentle, steady sound that blends with the natural silence of the canyon. The cliffs stand tall, but not in an intimidating way. They feel calm, like old friends who have watched over many generations. The people who lived here didn't depend on loud tools or complex structures. They built small, simple rooms in the stone, places that felt naturally cool inside and safe from the harsh world outside. When they stepped into their homes, the air softened around them and the quiet deepened, the way it does when you enter a peaceful room after a long day. Their mornings were gentle. They woke up not to noise, but to the slow change of light moving across the stone floors. A few soft movements were enough to begin the day. A blanket folded, a pot lifted, a calm breath shared between family members before stepping outside. Food came from what they grew with patience. Simple crops that supported them without needing constant worry. They didn't chase abundance. They didn't fight the land. They lived with it, walking the same paths every day, feeling the same warm wind slide quietly across their skin. In the afternoons, the world around them grew very still. The air rested. The cliffs held their heat gently, never in a way that overwhelmed, but in a way that wrapped the people in slow, steady warmth. Sometimes they would sit in shaded places where the stone walls softened the sunlight and made every sound feel distant. Evenings were the calmest. As the sun lowered behind the cliffs, a gentle coolness filled the homes. Families gathered in small groups, their voices low, their conversations unhurried. A few words, a few thoughtful pauses, a shared sense of peace. There was no need to speak constantly. Silence was familiar, comforting, part of their life. Night arrived quietly, with soft breezes drifting through the canyon and shadows settling slowly across the stone walls. Inside the cliff dwellings, people lay down to rest, letting the calm of the cave-like rooms carry them into sleep. Their world was simple, not empty, but gentle, not dramatic, but safe. A quiet life shaped by stone, guided by patience, and wrapped in the steady calm of the ancient cliffs. The days of the cliff people followed a quiet rhythm, not strict, not rushed, just a natural flow shaped by the land around them. When the early light touched the stone walls, the village began to stir. No loud voices, no sudden movements, just soft footsteps, blankets shifting, a few slow breaths as families woke peacefully. Outside their stone homes, the air was cool and steady. The sound of morning in the canyon was little more than a gentle breeze moving across the rocks, a low, comforting motion that carried the promise of another calm day. People stepped out with ease, stretching their bodies slowly, feeling the quiet settle into their muscles. Some walked toward the small fields nearby where they grew simple food, not large crops, but enough to sustain them with a sense of balance. They didn't hurry the land, and the land didn't hurry them. A few villagers checked the storage rooms built carefully inside the cliffs. They touched the cool stone walls, ensuring everything stayed safe and dry. Their movements were deliberate, not from stress, but from respect for the space that sheltered them. Children walked softly across the flat rock ledges, their footsteps making little shuffling sounds that blended gently with the canyon's quiet. They did not shout or run wildly. Their world encouraged softness, and it came naturally to them. As the sun rose higher, a warm stillness spread through the village. People focused on simple tasks, braiding fibers into rope, shaping small pots from clay, checking tools, all while sitting in shaded corners where the stone cooled the air around them. The sound of these tasks was minimal, a light scrape, a gentle tap, breaths moving steadily in and out, nothing sharp, nothing fast, just the steady flow of hands working with patience. Sometimes neighbors would sit together without speaking much. A small gesture, a shared bowl, a quiet smile. These were enough to communicate comfort and trust. Silence was not something to fill, it was something to share. Near midday, when the warmth grew deeper, people returned briefly to their homes. Inside, the air felt cooler, protected by the stone walls that had absorbed the night's calm. They rested a little, not because they were tired, but because rest was part of their way of living. A moment to breathe, to let thoughts slow down, to feel held by the stillness of the rock around them. Later, they prepared simple meals, a warm mixture of grains or beans, something soft and filling. They ate slowly, appreciating each bite as if it were a quiet gift from the land. And as the afternoon unfolded, the village drifted back into gentle activity. No rushing, no noise, only the easy harmony of people moving through their day with calm purpose. This was their life, simple, steady, peaceful, a place where every moment was an invitation to slow down and breathe. As the sun moved gently across the sky, the canyon settled into its peaceful afternoon rhythm. This time of day was neither busy nor silent. It was a soft in-between, a long, steady breath shared by the land and the people who lived within it. The warmth touched the stone walls, but not in a harsh way. The cliffs released heat slowly, making the air feel like a blanket draped lightly over the village. People moved a little more slowly now, their bodies adjusting naturally to the relaxed pace of the afternoon. Some villagers sat near the entrances of their stone homes, finding shade where the rock overhead curved forward like a gentle protective hand. They worked on quiet tasks, mending simple baskets, straightening the edges of woven mats, or smoothing a small clay jar until its surface felt calm beneath their fingertips. The sound of these tasks was almost nothing. A faint brush, a soft scrape, a quiet exhale. Every movement blended with the canyon's own hush as if people and land shared the same slow heartbeat. Children played calmly nearby. Their games didn't involve loud shouting or running. Instead, they used small stones arranged in patterns or drew shapes with their fingers in the thin dust that collected in quiet corners. Their laughter came softly, short, gentle sounds that rose and faded like a tiny breeze. From time to time, the wind stirred between the cliffs, moving air in long, smooth waves. It made a low tone. Not a whistle, not a howl, just a deep, steady sound that wrapped itself around the homes and slipped through the narrow pathways. The people recognized this sound. It reminded them that the canyon was alive in its own way. Not noisy, but aware, watchful, present. Further along the ledge, a pair of elders sat quietly together. They didn't need to speak. Their days were full of small understandings, a nod, a shared glance toward the sky, a slow breath taken at the same moment. They had lived many seasons in the cliffs and carried a calm wisdom that settled around them like cool shade. Sometimes they would close their eyes just to listen. The sound of distant footsteps in the sand, the gentle shifting of stone as it warmed and cooled, the soft rhythm of people moving with purpose, these sounds were familiar, comforting, and reassuring. As the afternoon continued, a few villagers walked toward the small spring hidden deeper in the canyon. Their footsteps were steady and light, leaving soft impressions in the sandy ground. They carried simple clay containers to collect fresh water, moving in a slow, peaceful line. The walk was not tiring, it was part of their daily calm, a chance to feel the air, to breathe deeply, to appreciate the steady presence of the land. When they returned, they placed the cool containers inside their homes, letting the spring water settle in the quiet of the stone rooms. The afternoon softened even further. The light grew warmer, and the village drifted into the gentle stillness between daylight and evening. As the afternoon slowly faded, the light across the canyon began to soften. Shadows stretched long and smooth along the stone walls, and the warm colors of the day shifted into a muted amber glow that made the entire village feel quieter, calmer, almost as if it were preparing for a deep breath of rest. Evening, for the cliff people, was a time of gentle returning. People moved back toward their homes in steady, relaxed motions, not because they were exhausted, but because the end of the day invited everyone to slow down and gather close. The stone rooms held on to the warmth of the afternoon just long enough to welcome their families inside. The air felt comfortable, a soft mix of coolness from the stone and lingering heat from the sun. It was the kind of air that made your shoulders loosen the moment you stepped through the doorway. Inside, small tasks were done quietly. A few clay pots were placed neatly along the wall. Blankets were gently shaken out and spread across the floor. Soft-footed children helped in small ways, handing an adult a piece of woven mat or carrying a small bowl from one place to another. Their movements were careful, as if they understood that evening was a time for softness. Outside, the sound of the canyon deepened. A gentle wind drifted through the narrow paths, moving slowly enough that you could hear the way it touched the rock. A quiet, steady sound, as if the land itself were humming. Some adults sat near the edge of the cliff dwellings, letting their legs dangle comfortably over the ledges. They watched the sky change colors from soft orange to muted pink to a calm, deep blue. They didn't talk much, a low murmur now and then, a shared observation, a slow breath drawn in and released. Silence was welcome here, a natural part of the day's closing moments. A small meal was prepared with the last light. Nothing complicated, nothing rushed. A simple mixture warmed gently in a clay bowl, its faint aroma drifting into the room like a soft invitation. People sat in a loose circle, eating slowly, sharing the quiet together. As the sky darkened further, the world outside the stone homes began to cool. The cliffs radiated the final bits of heat they had stored during the day, and the air took on a quiet stillness that made every small sound feel more tender. The soft clink of pottery, the hushed shuffle of a blanket, the low, even breath of someone settling down. One by one, the villagers eased into restful positions, either sitting comfortably or lying back against the woven mats. The elder let her voice drift gently into the room, not telling a full story, but offering a few calm words about the day, the land, and the slow, dependable rhythms that held their lives together. Night arrived without effort. It simply settled, soft, steady, welcoming. And the stone homes, cool and quiet, wrapped their people in the deep stillness that only an ancient canyon could offer at the end of a peaceful day. As night settled fully over the canyon, the world around the stone homes shifted into a deeper kind of calm, a quiet that felt almost timeless, as though the land were holding its breath in soft, steady patience. Inside the cliff dwellings, the light dimmed to a warm, low glow. A few embers rested in the small fire pit, their orange edges pulsing gently like the slow heartbeat of the room. They gave just enough warmth to take the cool edge off the stone walls, and just enough light for everyone to move with ease. People began to settle into their sleeping spaces. There were no beds, nothing rigid or structured, only soft woven mats and blankets made from gentle fibers spread across the floor in quiet, familiar arrangements. Each space was simple, but held a sense of comfort that came from years of peaceful routine. The families lay close together not because the rooms were small, but because closeness was part of how they rested. A hand resting near another, a quiet breath shared in the dark, a soft shift of a blanket. These small touches made the night feel safer and warmer. From outside, the canyon whispered faintly. The wind moved slowly between the cliffs, its sound low and steady, as if it were singing to the stone. Occasionally, a tiny grain of sand slid across the rock, making a soft, delicate hiss before fading into silence again. The villagers listened without judgment, without worry. The sounds of night were old companions, sometimes distant, sometimes close, but always gentle. They had lived with these sounds for generations, and each one carried its own quiet reassurance. An elder rested near the fire embers, eyes half closed, breathing slowly as she let her mind drift. She wasn't guarding the room, not in a strict way. She simply liked being awake a little longer, feeling the night settle, and welcoming its calm presence before sleep finally reached her. Now and then, she hummed a few soft tones, not a full song, just a slow, even sound that floated lightly in the air. It blended with the crackling embers and the distant canyon breeze, creating a gentle harmony that eased everyone deeper into the soft quiet of nighttime. The children curled closer to their parents, eyes already heavy, breaths slow and smooth. They didn't fight sleep. Night felt safe to them, a warm enclosure inside a deeper, older enclosure, the canyon itself. Little by little, the room's movements faded. Someone shifted one last time, adjusting a blanket. Someone else exhaled in a slow, calming sigh. And then, stillness. The cliff dwellings embraced their families, protecting them not with locked doors or high walls, but with the simple security of stone, warmth, and quiet. Above the canyon, the stars glowed in patient silence, watching over a village that rested deeply in the kind of peace that only ancient places can hold. The night held the village in deep stillness. Time moved slowly, as if every hour stretched out to offer a soft, unbroken calm. Inside the stone homes, the families slept peacefully, wrapped in woven blankets and the steady comfort of shared warmth. Long before the sun returned, the world outside began its quiet shift, not loud, never loud, but with small, delicate changes that only those familiar with the canyon would recognize. The air took on a cooler touch, a light breeze slipping deeper into the narrow pathways between the cliffs. It brushed gently against the rock, making faint, hollow notes that drifted like soft breaths through the stillness. Inside the homes, the embers in the fire pit glowed faintly beneath a thin layer of ash. Their light was nearly gone, but not completely. Every few moments, a tiny spark pulsed quietly, as if reminding the room that warmth was still present, even in the calmest hours of night. An elder stirred first, not from alarm nor from worry, but simply because her body had always known when the night began to lighten. She opened her eyes slowly, letting them adjust to the dim, warm shadows around her. Her breath moved in soft, controlled waves. She didn't rise right away. She lay still for a moment, listening to the almost silence. The gentle rustle of blankets as someone shifted slightly, the faint sigh of a sleeping child, the soft, earthy echo of the canyon wind outside. When she finally sat up, she did so with calm movements, unhurried and steady. The room accepted the change without breaking its peaceful rhythm. She reached toward the fire pit, placing a few small pieces of wood near the resting embers. She didn't ignite a flame immediately. Meantime, she simply let the wood sit, allowing it to warm slowly before catching light. As she worked, she whispered a soothing breath that blended naturally with the quiet air. A little farther inside the room, a child stirred, not awake, just shifting slightly in sleep, curling deeper beneath the blanket. The elder watched for a moment, her expression soft, then continued her slow, steady motions. Outside, the sky remained dark but not as heavy as before. A faint coolness spread across the canyon, the kind that hinted at the first moments before dawn. The cliffs held the cold carefully, like a guardian preparing to hand the world back to daylight. A few other villagers began to drift toward wakefulness. They didn't sit up fully, not yet, but their breathing changed, growing a little deeper, a little more aware. The elder added one more piece of wood to the ember bed and gently stirred the ash. A warm glow appeared, quiet and soft, just enough to guide the room into the slow beginning of another day. No rush, no noise. The canyon remained calm, holding its people gently as the earliest hint of morning waited beyond the horizon. Slowly, almost silently, the earliest hint of dawn began to stretch across the canyon. It didn't arrive suddenly or brightly. Instead, it appeared like a soft breath of pale light, touching the tops of the cliffs with a calm, gentle glow. Inside the stone homes, the quiet continued, steady, warm, familiar. People rested in the last moments of night, their bodies still heavy with sleep, their breathing soft and unbroken. The fire's embers cast a faint orange shimmer across the floor, barely enough to see, yet enough to reassure that warmth remained close. The elder shifted again, her movements slow and steady. She watched the fire glow, then glanced toward the entrance of the dwelling where the soft gray light was beginning to seep through. Another day was coming, and she felt its calm presence before any sound confirmed it. One by one, the villagers began to wake, not fully, not all at once, but with small, gentle motions, a quiet breath drawn in, a shoulder rolling softly beneath the blanket, a hand stretching into the cool air, the slow blink of someone returning from a deep, peaceful sleep. There was no talking yet. The morning was too fragile, too calm, to break with unnecessary words. Instead, the people let themselves wake naturally in harmony with the canyon's quiet rhythm. A few children sat up first, rubbing their eyes with slow, sleepy motions. They stayed wrapped in their blankets, leaning gently against their parents as they took in the soft morning air. The stone walls embraced the faint glow of dawn, reflecting it in muted tones that made the room feel warm and safe. When the elder finally stood, she moved with a grace that showed years of practiced calm. She added one more piece of wood to the soft embers, coaxing them into a small flame. The fire responded with a slow rise of warmth, spreading a gentle comfort through the room. Outside, the canyon began its own quiet awakening. A light breeze traveled between the cliffs, carrying the softest possible sound. A faint movement of air that brushed the stone like a hand passing lightly across fabric. The people stepped outside gradually, letting the fresh air touch their faces. The sky was turning from deep blue to pale gold, and the stone homes glowed softly under the growing light. They stood together in peaceful silence, watching the day begin in its slow, steady way. There was no rush to start work, no urgency to move, no pressure to speak, just the shared presence of a community waking together, held safely by the ancient cliffs that had watched over them for countless lifetimes. And as the sun finally crested the ridge, casting a gentle warmth across the canyon floor, the people breathed in deeply, a long, calm breath that signaled the beginning of another quiet day. A day shaped by simplicity, a day shaped by patience, a day shaped by peace. The cliffs watched, silently, steady as ever, holding the village in their timeless embrace, and the story of the ancient cave people rested in a gentle stillness that would carry far beyond the morning light. Long after dawn settled across the canyon, the ancient homes remained wrapped in a deep, unbroken calm. Even when the day grew brighter, the stone dwellings held a quiet warmth, a steady reminder of the people who had lived here with patience, with balance, and with a gentle respect for the land that sheltered them. The village never needed noise or hurry. Its rhythm was slow, guided by routines that felt natural, timeless, and deeply connected to the world around them. Every morning began with soft breaths and light footsteps. Every evening ended with calm conversations and peaceful rest. Their lives were simple, not because they lacked anything, but because they understood that peace came from living close to the land and close to each other. As the day continued, the canyon filled with subtle sounds, a breeze moving slowly through the stone corridors, a light shift of sand along the pathways, the faint echo of footsteps as villagers walked toward the fields and springs. These sounds were part of their world, as familiar as the beating of their own hearts. They didn't need more. They didn't search for more. They simply lived each day fully with awareness and ease, letting every sunrise and sunset shape the quiet rhythm of their lives. Even now, long after their time has passed, the canyon still carries traces of their presence. You can almost feel them in the cool walls of the stone homes, where warmth once lingered in the evenings, where families gathered to share calm meals and soft words spoken in low voices. You can sense them in the gentle pathways leading from one dwelling to another, paths walked so often that their memory still seems alive beneath the surface of the sand. You can hear them in the faint breeze that drifts between the cliffs, a quiet reminder of a people who moved with the land, not against it, who listened more than they spoke, and who found comfort in the subtle music of the canyon's breath. Their days were not dramatic, yet they were full. Their nights were not lonely, but shared with warmth with family, with the soft glow of embers and the slow hush of ancient stone. And as the sun lowered again, casting long, gentle shadows across the canyon floor, the village seemed to settle into its old, familiar stillness, a peaceful hush that had lasted for centuries and would last for centuries more. Because places like these, places shaped by patience, by steady hands, by hearts that lived close to the earth, carry a kind of quiet that never truly disappears. It lingers in the walls, in the pathways, in the air, a silent echo of a life lived gently, a life that invites us, even now, to slow down, to breathe deeply, and to rest. As evening returned once more to the canyon, the ancient homes rested in their quiet places, held safely between stone walls that had witnessed countless seasons of life. The sun dipped behind the cliffs, casting long shadows that moved slowly across the ground, shadows that seemed to breathe in gentle harmony with the land. Even though the people were long gone, their presence felt woven into every part of this place. The canyon remembered them in the same way. A familiar melody lingers long after the music fades. In the cool hours of twilight, the stone walls carried a faint warmth left behind by the fading sun. You could almost imagine how families once returned to these homes, their footsteps soft, their voices low, their hearts steady after another quiet day. Somewhere deep within the canyon, the wind changed its tone, creating a low, humming sound as it moved through narrow passages. It wasn't loud, and it wasn't sharp, just a soft vibration that echoed between the cliffs like an ancient memory trying gently to surface. You might picture how the people once recognized these sounds, how they used them as signs of approaching night, how they let the canyon's voice guide the rhythm of their evenings. In the softening light, the old pathways almost glowed, thin lines carved into the sand by generations of walking feet. These paths had carried children, elders, gatherers, and families from home to field, from field to spring, and back again. Now the paths were quiet but still familiar, as if they remembered every person who had ever walked them. High above, the first stars appeared, small patient lights that had watched over the canyon long before any home was built. They flickered softly, reflecting in the faint shimmer of sandstone, touching the cliffs with a gentle, silvery glow. As darkness deepened, the air cooled further and the canyon's stillness grew fuller, more complete. It was the kind of calm that felt almost like a soft blanket, one that wrapped itself around everything in a quiet, reassuring embrace. You could almost hear the slow, steady breathing of people settling down for the night, the rustle of a blanket, the soft sigh of someone relaxing, the faint murmur of an elder's voice telling a final, soothing story before the fire dimmed to embers. The canyon held all of these echoes with gentle care. It didn't cling to them sadly or urgently. It simply kept them the way stone keeps warmth, softly, patiently, and without effort. And as night closed in fully, the cliffs stood silent under the wide sky, a timeless reminder of a peaceful life lived close to the earth, a life whose quiet rhythm still lingers in the air for anyone who chooses to listen. As night took complete hold of the canyon, the world settled into a stillness so deep and steady that it felt as though time itself had decided to pause here, out of respect for the ancient lives that once filled this place. The stone homes, quiet and unmoving, sat along the cliff walls like gentle keepers of memory. Their rounded doorways and smooth, curved rooms held the soft echoes of people who once breathed once spoke, once rested in the exact calm that now fills the air, a calm that has never left. The moon rose slowly above the canyon, its light cool and soft, falling across the sand in gentle trails that glimmered lightly as the breeze touched them. The breeze itself was a quiet companion, moving with such care that each shift of air felt intentional, deliberate, like a comforting hand resting lightly on your shoulder. You could almost imagine the ancient villagers gathering outside at this quiet hour, some sitting near the ledges, some leaning against the cool stone walls, all watching the moon climb with a sense of simple, peaceful connection. There were no grand ceremonies, no loud celebrations, just presence, just breath, just the soft understanding that the land held them gently and that they, in return, moved gently through the land. Now, long after their footsteps have faded, the canyon keeps this softness alive. It continues their rhythm in every whisper of wind, every shift of sand, every warm echo of sunlight still held inside the stone. The silence here is not empty. It is full, full of old stories told in the quiet language of the land, full of small comforts woven into the contours of the cliffs, full of a peace so steady that it feels like a slow pulse beneath the entire canyon floor. If you listen long enough, you may feel your own breath begin to fall into the same calm pace, deep, slow, unhurried, as if your body is remembering something ancient, something patient, something that humans carried long before noise filled the world. The night stretches on, soft and unbroken. The stars linger above, patient and steady. And the cliff dwellings, quiet, timeless, continue to cradle the echoes of life that once rested within their walls. Nothing more is needed. Nothing more is asked. The canyon holds its silence like a gentle treasure, and that silence, soft and deep, opens itself to you now, inviting you to rest, to breathe, to drift. Slowly, the world fades into a softer shade of calm. The cliffs dissolve into gentle shadow. The breeze becomes a faint sigh, and all that remains is the steady, soothing quiet of a place that has known peace for longer than memory. Here, in this ancient canyon, you are safe, you are calm, you are held by a silence that lives forever. As the night deepened, the canyon drifted into a level of stillness even quieter than before, a kind of silence that feels almost suspended in time, as though the world is resting on the softest breath imaginable. The moon climbed higher, casting a gentle silver glow along the upper ridges of the cliffs. Its light did not intrude. It simply rested on the stone, smooth and delicate, as if the canyon itself were being tucked in under a calm, nightly blanket. Inside the ancient homes, the darkness settled in comfortable layers, not heavy, not suffocating, but soft, like a slow shadow wrapping around everything with peaceful intention. The rooms held their shape quietly. The walls, long accustomed to night, absorbed the faint traces of warmth still lingering from the day. The floor was cool and carried the memory of countless footsteps, footsteps that now seemed to whisper beneath the surface in a language made only of gentle echoes. The air hardly moved. Every shift was gradual, like the slow exhale of someone already halfway to sleep. A tiny pocket of wind drifted through the narrow doorway, brushing the stone in a single soft motion before fading out again, as if respecting the quiet inside. In this deep night, the canyon felt aware. Not awake, just aware. A calm presence that has watched over the land for longer than any story remembers. You might imagine how the ancient people once slept at this hour, lying close together on woven mats, their breathing slow and warm, their bodies relaxed in the familiar shelter of their stone homes, the faint rustle of a blanket, the quiet sigh of a sleepy child, the low hum of embers cooling, all would have blended into a steady rhythm of peace. Even now, long after their voices have faded, that rhythm still seems to echo in the quiet spaces of the canyon, a soft reminder that calm doesn't disappear. It lingers, carried forward by the places that once held it deeply. The stars above shimmered in small, steady pulses, as if blinking in slow agreement with the canyon's calm. Their light touched the stone lightly, creating faint lines and gentle glows that drifted across the walls like soft, drifting thoughts. Nothing moved quickly, nothing demanded attention. The entire world, as far as the canyon stretched, seemed to pause in perfect harmony. It was a night built for rest, a night that carried no weight, no burden, no urgency, only the quiet invitation to settle deeper into softness. If you closed your eyes here, you would feel the world fall away in a peaceful fade. Your breath would slow, your thoughts would drift, and the steady calm of the canyon would guide you gently toward the edge of a long, quiet dream, a dream shaped by stone, by stillness, and by the quiet heartbeat of a place that remembers every calm moment it ever held. The canyon, now fully embraced by night, felt as though it had reached the deepest point of stillness, a quiet so soft and steady that it seemed to cradle everything within it with a calm, unwavering gentleness. The moon hovered high above the cliffs, its light spreading in thin, silvery layers that drifted across the stone like calm water moving over smooth sand. Nothing rushed, nothing pushed. Every beam of light seemed to settle slowly, patiently, as if giving the canyon time to breathe in its own rhythm. Down in the ancient dwellings, the air remained cool and soothing. The stone walls held a calm presence, as though their long memory could steady anyone who stepped inside. There was no fire now, only the softest trace of warmth left behind by embers that had faded into quiet ash. If you listen closely, you might hear the faintest hum. Not a sound made by people, but a sound made by the land itself, a deep, low vibration that exists only in places where time moves gently and silence carries wisdom. The canyon seemed to breathe, a slow, steady inhale as the breeze touched the stone, and a long, gentle exhale as it drifted back into the night. This breath wasn't loud or dramatic. It was almost imperceptible, yet unmistakably alive. Above the ancient homes, the stars shimmered quietly in the vast stretch of sky. Their soft, scattered glow felt like tiny reminders of all the nights that had unfolded here long before the present moment. Nights full of calm routines, soft footsteps, restful families settling into the safety of stone walls. Even now, with the people long gone, the canyon held on to that peace. It kept it gently, the way one might hold a small, cherished memory between careful hands. A light breeze moved again, slipping into the dwelling's entrance. It brushed the walls, passed across the floor, and flowed out the other side. A soft, quiet motion that carried no chill and no urgency, only calm. You could almost feel the rhythm of this place settling deeper into you. A slow, grounding pulse that encourages your body to release tension bit by bit. A quiet reassurance woven into the air itself. As the night continued, the cliffs stood tall and patient, their edges softened by moonlight. Shadows pulled gently in the corners of the ancient rooms, moving only when the breeze shifted its path. The entire canyon seemed to exist in a single moment, a moment stretched out into peaceful infinity, a moment where nothing mattered beyond breath, stillness, and the soft presence of an ancient world at rest. It was a place where the mind could loosen, where thoughts slowed to a quiet drift, and where sleep arrived not as a demand, but as a calm invitation. The canyon breathed, the stone listened, the night held everything softly, including you. As the night continued its slow passage, the canyon slipped even deeper into a kind of silence that didn't feel empty at all, but full, filled with layers of quiet that seemed to settle gently over every stone, every ledge, every forgotten pathway. The moonlight had softened now, becoming a pale, cool glow that drifted lightly across the canyon floor. Where it touched the sand, the grains sparkled with a faint, muted shimmer. Not bright, but calm, as if the night itself was exhaling a soft, sleepy sigh. Inside the ancient dwellings, stillness settled like a second blanket. The air barely moved. The shadows gathered softly in the smooth curves of the stone walls, shadows that felt more like gentle resting places than anything dark or heavy. This was the hour when the canyon felt furthest from the world, a moment suspended between the memories of the past and the quiet breath of the present. Nothing disturbed the peace, no footsteps, no voices, only the faint, distant echo of a breeze shifting far above, touching the cliff edges before disappearing again into soft, endless quiet. If you stood here, you might notice how the silence creates its own rhythm, a slow, steady pulse that drifts through the air like a heartbeat too calm to be heard, yet too persistent to be ignored. This rhythm was the same one that guided the people who lived here, a natural grounding flow that shaped their days and nights without ever rushing them. And even now, you might feel yourself falling into that rhythm too, breathing a little slower, thinking a little softer, letting the quiet reach deeper into you until it becomes a part of your own gentle stillness. The stone floors held a coolness that felt steady and ancient. If you sat upon them, you might feel the remnants of the day's warmth resting just beneath the surface, a quiet reminder that even stone remembers the sun long after the light has faded. Above, the stars continued their patient glow, not twinkling quickly but shining in long, slow pulses, as if speaking the same soft language the canyon had always known. From time to time, a faint sound drifted from deep within the rock, a tiny crack, a subtle shift, the natural settling of ancient stone adjusting to the chill of night. These sounds weren't startling, they weren't sudden. They were gentle reminders that the canyon was alive in its own quiet way, and slowly the night seemed to embrace everything: the cliffs, the stone homes, the soft pathways, and the breath of anyone who rested within its walls. There was no end to the calm, no boundary where silence stopped and sound began, only an endless, soothing quiet that filled every corner of the ancient world, a quiet that invited you to drift deeper and deeper into rest. The deepest part of night slowly began to loosen its hold, like a long exhale fading into the early air. The canyon remained mostly dark, but there was a subtle shift, a quiet thinning of the shadows, a slight softening of the silence, as if the world sensed dawn approaching from very far away. Nothing rushed, nothing brightened. Suddenly, morning in this ancient place never arrived with noise or urgency. It came in gentle stages, each one softer than the last. High above the cliffs, the stars started dimming, not all at once, but in slow, thoughtful intervals, as though they were stepping aside to make room for the coming light. Their glow pulsed one last time, then settled into a faint shimmer that lingered just long enough to feel like a farewell. Inside the stone homes, the darkness grew lighter by degrees. The shadows that had rested in the curved corners of the dwellings began to thin, stretching softly across the floor as the first hints of morning moved quietly into the canyon. The air still held the coolness of night, but it felt different now, less deep, less heavy, as if warmth were gathering just beyond the horizon and breathing gently into the space. In the faint half-light, the stone walls revealed small details that had been hidden through the long night. The smooth surfaces reflected a soft, gray glow, the kind of light that asks you to open your eyes slowly, comfortably, without leaving the calm behind. The canyon outside began to stir in its own quiet way. A soft breeze traveled between the cliffs, barely touching the sand, but enough to make a delicate sound. A low, steady brush as air met stone. It was the first morning voice of this ancient place. No people walked the paths now, yet the silence felt full, filled with traces of movement that once followed this same rhythm every dawn. Families waking together, breathing gently, stretching beneath woven blankets, rising to meet another simple day. The land remembered, it always had. Slowly, the sky beyond the canyon wall shifted from deep blue to a soft muted silver. Light pulled at the edges of the cliff tops, gaining strength without ever becoming harsh. It was a calm, patient glow, the kind that comes only to places where time moves gently. A few moments later, a faint warmth touched the stone. Not much, just enough to soften the coolness of the night-soaked walls. It spread slowly downward, like a hand smoothing over the canyon with quiet reassurance. Dawn didn't break here. It unfolded softly, steadily, with every breath the land had held through the night. And as the light grew stronger, the ancient dwellings seemed to step gracefully into another day, a day that would move with the same calm rhythm, the same unhurried pulse that had guided this place for countless generations. The canyon awakened, not with noise, but with peace, inviting anyone who listened to rise slowly, breathe deeply, and remain wrapped in the gentle quiet of an ancient morning. With the light now settling across the canyon, the world began to regain its quiet motion, not fast or loud, but with the same gentle rhythm that had shaped this place for centuries. The first true warmth of the morning moved slowly across the stone walls, touching each surface as though offering a soft greeting. The ancient cliff homes glowed faintly in the new light, their walls brightening from muted gray to pale, calm gold. It was the kind of transformation that happened so gradually you could almost miss it if you weren't paying attention. But the canyon noticed. It always noticed. The air shifted next, gaining a slight warmth that wrapped itself around the cool night air still lingering near the ground. The blend created a delicate balance, a soft, layered temperature that felt gentle on the skin, like the quiet warmth of a hand resting lightly on your arm. In the open spaces outside the stone dwellings, the sand carried new shapes, subtle patterns created during the night by the faint breeze that moved through the canyon. These patterns were delicate, almost like lines drawn with a soft brush, curving and drifting in slow, natural swirls. The morning light revealed them gently, and for a moment, The entire canyon floor looked like a quiet painting, made not by human hands, but by the steady breath of the land itself. If you listened closely now, you might hear the very first small sounds that marked the beginning of the day. Not footsteps, but something even softer. A tiny shift of sand as the breeze returned, a faint echo as warm air rose from the stone walls, a gentle, distant hum as the canyon adjusted to the arrival of light. These sounds were subtle reminders of how the ancient people once lived here, waking slowly, moving carefully, letting the morning guide them rather than rushing into it. You could almost imagine their quiet routines, stretching beneath blankets, standing in doorways to feel the morning air, breathing deeply as the canyon opened itself to another day. No alarms, no urgency, just the natural pull of a world reawakening with softness. The stone homes absorbed more of the morning light, their walls warming in slow, gentle waves. Shadows retreated into deeper corners, becoming softer, less defined, as if even they were relaxing into the calm of the day. The canyon's silence remained present, but it no longer felt like the silence of night. It felt like the silence of morning, a bright, clear stillness full of calm possibilities. Here, in this ancient place, morning didn't demand movement or sound. It simply offered a gentle invitation to exist, to breathe, to let the day begin in its own unhurried way. And the canyon, as always, held everything in its quiet embrace, steady, patient, and endlessly peaceful. As the morning light grew steadier, the canyon felt as if it were stretching, not with movement, but with brightness, allowing the world to open itself a little more with each quiet moment. The stone walls, which had rested in cool darkness all night, now soaked in the sunlight like ancient skin absorbing warmth. They held it gently, releasing it in slow, faint waves that drifted into the air and softened the last traces of nighttime chill. The air itself began to move in a more deliberate rhythm. A light breeze slipped through the canyon, not strong, not forceful, just a steady, comforting motion that brushed against the stone with a soft, even whisper. The sound almost felt like breathing, a slow inhale, a slow exhale, a peaceful repetition that brought the whole canyon into a state of quiet harmony. If you walked along the ledges now, your footsteps would be soft, barely pressing into the warm stone. You would feel the calm of the morning settle into your own body, your shoulders loosening, your breath deepening, your thoughts drifting into the same slow rhythm the canyon had known for centuries. The ancient dwellings, with their curved walls and smooth floors, appeared brighter in the morning sun. Shadows pulled back, giving way to mild, golden light that filled the rooms with a sense of gentle clarity. Nothing looked sharp. Nothing looked harsh. Everything was softened by the warm glow that filtered naturally across the stone. In this light, you could almost imagine the people who once lived here stepping quietly into the day, rubbing sleep from their eyes, stretching their arms, moving with the slow grace that comes from living in a place where time itself moves gently. Their mornings were simple: a sip of cool water from a clay bowl, a slow walk toward the fields, a few words exchanged in soft tones, never hurried, never loud. Their lives unfolded like the canyon's own rhythm, steady, patient, purposeful in the quietest ways. Even now, the land carries the memory of those gentle routines. The breeze echoes it, the sunlight echoes it, the silence echoes it too, holding on to the calm familiarity of a world built on simplicity, As the sun climbed higher, the warmth spread more fully across the canyon floor. The air gained a faint shimmer, the kind that dances lightly above heated stone, giving the landscape a soft, dreamlike quality. Everything was still calm, still unhurried. The day had begun, yet it carried no weight. Only the promise of quiet moments strung gently together like beads on a long, steady thread. Here, nothing demanded your attention, nothing pushed you forward. The canyon simply invited you to move through the day with the same slow ease that shaped the ancient lives still lingering in the stone, a place where the world and you could simply be. As the morning settled fully into the canyon, the world adopted a calm, steady brightness. The golden light reached comfortably into every corner of the ancient dwellings, making the stone appear warmer, softer, almost welcoming in the way it glowed. The air had a quiet fullness to it, not heavy, not thick, but softly present like a slow breeze resting against the skin. Every movement of air felt meaningful, a small shift here, a gentle touch there, never breaking the silence, only shaping it. Outside the dwellings, the pathways carved into the canyon held a peaceful stillness. These were the same paths the ancient people once walked, simple trails pressed gently into the earth by generations, moving at an unhurried pace. Even now, they felt familiar. They curved smoothly along the edges of the cliff, following the natural lines of the land instead of forcing a direction upon it. To walk along them was to feel the quiet intelligence of a people who understood the rhythm of stone and sun and wind. If you stepped onto one of these paths now, your footsteps would soften immediately, absorbed by sand that still remembered the weight of people who walked not with haste, but with steady purpose. Every footstep you took would blend into the canyon's calm, as if the land welcomed your presence without question. Warm light pooled across the open spaces, creating pockets of gentle brightness on the rock surfaces. In these spots, the stone held a pleasant heat, the kind that sinks slowly into the body and reassures you in a quiet, grounding way. Not far from the dwellings, a small overhang of rock offered shade. The air beneath it was cool, calm, and steady, a perfect place to pause. Standing there, you could feel the balance of temperatures, warmth from the rising sun, coolness from the shadowed stone, and the faint touch of the canyon breeze connecting them. Nothing rushed, nothing demanded movement. The day unfolded with deliberate softness, inviting anyone who listened to breathe a little deeper and move a little slower. The canyon echoed its own quiet language, the low hum of wind moving across wide openings, the faint tapping of sand as it shifted along the ground, and the distant call of a solitary bird gliding between cliff edges. These sounds weren't intrusive, they weren't loud. They were like gentle markers of a world waking gracefully, a world that had always known the value of slow mornings. In the warmth of the sun and the coolness of the shade, you could imagine the ancient villagers starting their day here, picking up simple tools, touching the stone walls in quiet acknowledgement, walking the familiar paths with calm steps that matched the pulse of the canyon. Their presence remained not in bodies, not in voices, but in the soft pattern of life that the land still carried, a pattern of stillness, balance, and gentle continuity. And as the day continued to brighten, the canyon held all of it in peaceful silence, offering that same quiet to anyone who paused long enough to feel it. In the quiet canyon, the ancient homes grew soft beneath the rising light. The stone, the breeze, and the open sky rested together in perfect stillness. Nothing rushed, nothing asked for more. Only a gentle calm remained, a calm that lingered long after the world awakened, inviting anyone who passed to breathe and rest.